Hey everyone, and welcome back for another deep dive.
Glad to be here.
Today, we're going to be looking at those crazy LA wildfires.
Right, yeah. Those are something else.
We've got this BBC News video we're going to be looking at.
Sure.
It's got all these firsthand accounts from people who were there.
Oh, wow.
And it's one thing to hear about this stuff, on the news.
Yeah,
But it's another thing to hear it straight from the people who went through it,
definitely.
Seeing the emotion on their faces and hearing how scared they were.
Yeah.
That's what really got to me.
It's true. Those personal stories, they just hit differently.
Yeah.
And what really struck me with this video was it's just crazy how fast this fire spread.
Right.
It went from a normal fire to a total inferno in no time.
Yeah, and everyone in the video is talking about the wind.
Oh, yeah.
And how it was throwing flames over these hills.
That's scary to think about.
It is. I mean, a lot of these people have been through wildfires before, but this one seems like it really caught everyone off guard.
Yeah, you can hear it in their voices. They just can't believe what's happening.
Right.
There's this one guy, Charles. He's lived there for 30 years.
Okay.
And even he was saying at first, we've seen this before. This is nothing new to us.
Wow.
But then just a few hours later, he's having to evacuate.
That's wild.
Yeah. It
Yeah.
really shows you how unpredictable these fires can be.
Especially with climate change and everything.
Exactly. Climate change is making everything more extreme.
It makes you think you know what to expect.
Yeah.
And then nature just throws something like this at you.
Totally. So are we going to talk about the evacuations?
Yeah, so the video says 30,000 people had to leave their homes almost overnight.
Jeez.
They were saying it was a total ghost town.
Can you imagine that? A whole city completely empty?
It's kind of eerie.
Definitely. But even with all the chaos, you see some pretty amazing stories of people helping each other out.
Oh, there's this one resident who was packing bags for their friends who'd lost everything.
That's incredible.
And another person was looking for his son who'd taken off on foot without his phone.
Oh, wow.
It's just heartbreaking, but it also shows you how strong people can be in tough situations.
For sure. It really makes you think about what you would do in that situation.
Yeah.
Just grabbing whatever you can and not even knowing if you'll ever see your house again.
I know. And you know what else really got to me? There was this 91-year-old man who lost everything.
Oh, no.
But he was still determined to rebuild.
Oh, wow. That's amazing.
It is, right?
Yes, sir.
It's incredible how resilient some people are.
Totally. And speaking of resilience,
Oh, yeah.
there was this one story about this family that was escaping with their father-in-law,
Okay.
and he has Parkinson's disease.
Oh, God.
And they had to drive through flames on both sides of the car.
Are you serious?
Yeah, and they ended up being rescued by a complete stranger.
Wow, what a story.
I know, it really shows you that even in the middle of all this craziness,
There's still good people out there.
it's true.
But you can also really hear, the emotional toll it's taking on everyone.
For sure.
There's just tears and fear in their voices.
Yeah.
I can't even imagine what it would be like to watch your entire world just burn.
It must be so surreal.
Totally. And while everyone was trying to escape,
Right.
the firefighters were heading straight into it.
I can't even imagine.
But the video doesn't really paint a good picture of what they had to deal with.
No, I don't think so either.
It sounds like they were completely overwhelmed.
Right.
And they didn't have enough resources.
Like what specifically?
Well, they were saying there's a shortage of water.
Seriously.
Yeah, and that some of the firefighters had to just stand there and watch houses burn.
Oh, man. That's got to be tough.
I know, right? It just makes you realize that sometimes,
Yeah.
even with all our technology and everything,
Uh-huh.
we still can't control nature.
That's for sure. And you know what's even crazier?
What's that?
There were reports of people looting during all the chaos.
You're kidding.
Nope. So not only did people lose their homes, but some of them had their stuff stolen too.
Oh, man. That's awful.
It is. It just shows you how complicated things can get in a situation like this.
It's just layer after layer of problems.
Exactly. But hey, can we back up for a second?
Sure.
I want to talk about what caused this fire to spread so fast in the first place.
Okay.
The video mentions the Santa Ana winds.
Right. Those are pretty notorious out in California.
They are, but can you explain to me exactly what they are?
Sure.
Why are they so dangerous when it comes to wildfires?
Well, basically, the Santa Ana winds start in the Great Basin, which is east of California.
Okay.
And as the wind blows down from the mountains, it loses moisture and gets really dry.
I see.
And then as it blows towards the west, It gets squeezed through these canyons and mountain passes,
Uh-huh.
and that makes the wind speed increase like crazy.
So it's like someone's aiming a giant hairdryer at these already dry hills,
Exactly.
turning everything into kindling.
Yep, and dry vegetation catches fire really easily.
Oh,
And then you add those super strong winds,
yeah.
and the flames just get pushed across the land so fast.
And that makes it super hard to contain the fire.
Right. So it's like this perfect storm for disaster.
Totally. And of course, we can't forget about the elephant in the room.
You mean climate change?
Exactly. That's
Yeah.
where things get even more serious.
I agree. There's no denying the link between climate change and wildfires.
Right. The NOAA did this study.
That's the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration, right?
Yeah, that's the one. And they found that because of climate change, the area burned by wildfires has almost doubled since the 1970s.
Doubled. That's insane.
It is
Yeah.
a pretty scary statistic.
But I'm still a little confused about how exactly climate change is causing these fires to get worse.
Oh, okay. Well, it's kind of a few things. First
Yeah.
of all, as the planet gets hotter, everything dries out more,
Right.
which means the vegetation becomes way more flammable.
Makes sense.
And then we're also seeing changes in rainfall.
Uh-huh.
So some areas are having these really long droughts.
Which obviously makes things even drier.
Exactly. So it's not just about this one fire in LA. It's
Yeah.
about this whole trend of wildfires becoming more and more dangerous.
And that brings us to the question of preparedness.
Yeah.
Knowing all this about climate change,
Mm-hmm.
do you think the authorities were actually ready to deal with something like this?
That's a great question, and we should definitely dig into that more later.
Agreed. But for now,
Yeah.
let's move on to the aftermath of the fires
Okay.
and talk about what the recovery process looks like.
Good idea. Man, when you see the aftermath in the video, it's just heartbreaking.
Yeah.
All those houses just got reduced to ash.
It's crazy.
And the whole landscape is just scarred, and you can barely even recognize it.
I know. It's hard to even wrap your head around how much was lost.
Yeah, until you see those images, it doesn't really sink in.
They kept saying it was a shattered landscape.
Yeah, and that's exactly what it looks like.
And that makes you think, it's not just about rebuilding houses and stuff.
Right.
It's about rebuilding people's lives, their communities.
Exactly. Their whole sense of normalcy.
Like, where do you even start after something like that?
It's a long road back, that's for sure.
Yeah.
It's physically and emotionally draining.
Right.
You've got the trauma of having to leave your home, the grief of losing everything you own, and then the uncertainty of what the future holds.
It's a lot to deal with.
It is.
Yeah.
And with fire season getting longer and more intense every year,
Yeah.
I can only imagine the fear that people must be feeling.
Like it could all happen again.
Exactly. It's got to be tough.
It does. But even with all the loss,
Uh-huh.
what really struck me was how much support people were giving each other.
Oh, yeah, totally.
Like donations were pouring in and volunteers were everywhere.
It's amazing how quickly people come together in times like these.
It really is. It reminds you that even in the worst situations,
Yeah,
there's still so much good in the world.
I agree. And it's not just about those big gestures either.
Right.
It's the little things, too. Like in the video, they even showed Prince Harry and Meghan Markle
Oh, wow.
visiting a place where they were giving out food.
Really?
Yeah. It's a small thing, but it helps to bring attention to the recovery efforts.
Definitely. It shows that people are still thinking about it.
Exactly. And it also shows the power of collective action.
Like, even if it's just a small gesture,
Yeah.
it all adds up.
It all contributes to the healing process.
So we're seeing all this amazing support,
Yeah.
but there's also an investigation happening, right? To figure out what caused these fires.
Right. It's hard to believe that something this destructive could just happen.
I know. You just want answers.
You do. The video mentions something about the Los Angeles Regional Wildfire Investigative Task Force.
Okay.
So they're looking into whether it was arson or an accident, or if there's any connection between the different fires that started.
It would be good to know.
It would, because then maybe we could prevent it from happening again.
Exactly. And it raises even bigger questions, too.
Like what?
Like, what can we learn from this whole disaster?
Right.
And how can we prepare for future wildfires?
Especially with climate change making things so much worse.
You're hitting on all the important points.
These aren't just questions for California either.
True. This could happen anywhere.
Yeah. Anywhere that's at risk of wildfires.
You know something that really blew my mind?
What's that?
They're saying that these LA wildfires could be the most expensive in history.
Really?
Yeah, possibly even worldwide.
Wow. I didn't realize it was that bad.
It really puts the scale of this whole thing into perspective.
It does. It just shows you that climate change isn't some far-off problem.
Right.
It's happening right now, and it's having a huge impact on people's lives.
And on their wallets, too?
Exactly.
Yeah.
We're talking about billions of dollars in damage.
Is that crazy?
Lost homes, lost businesses. It's putting a huge strain on resources.
There was this climate journalist in the video,
Mm-hmm.
and they said something that really stuck with me.
What was that?
They said that this event is one of those key events in history, like in the whole planet's history, that shows us the potential impact of climate change.
That's deep.
It feels like a turning point.
Yeah,
Like we need to wake up and realize how serious this is.
we do. We can't ignore it anymore.
And we need to start making changes.
Agreed. It's time to take action.
So we've gone from the shock of seeing those fires
Yeah?
to realizing just how much climate change is affecting us.
It's been quite a journey.
It has. I don't know about you, but I'm feeling kind of overwhelmed by all this.
Yeah, it's a lot to take in.
The disaster, the whole climate change thing.
Right. It can feel kind of hopeless sometimes.
Like, what can we even do?
I know what you mean.
It feels like one fire, even one this big,
Uh-huh.
is just a drop in the bucket, you know?
I hear you, but you know what? Even with all the bad stuff, this video also showed a lot of good.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
Like all those people coming together to help each other
Right.
and the stories of people being so resilient. It's pretty inspiring.
It is. It gives you hope for humanity.
Exactly. It shows that even when things are really tough,
Yeah.
we can still be there for each other.
We've talked about a lot today, haven't we?
We have.
Yeah.
We really went deep on this one.
We saw how destructive these fires can be.
Yeah.
And we heard from people who had to run for their lives.
Right.
And then we got into all the complicated stuff about being prepared and climate change.
It's been a real journey.
It has. So
Yeah.
why do we do this? You know?
Why do we do these deep dives?
Yeah. Why do we spend all this time talking about this stuff?
Good question.
Well, I think it's important to connect the dots,
Uh-huh.
like to understand what's happening in the world
Right.
and how it all connects to our own lives.
And how we can make a difference.
Exactly. And these LA wildfires, as terrible as they are,
Yeah.
they remind us that we're all connected
You are.
and that we're all vulnerable to these kinds of disasters.
And that we need to act now.
For sure. So what does this all mean for you, the listener?
Yeah. What can they take away from all this?
Well, I hope it makes you think
Think about what?
about the world we live in
Mm-hmm.
and the challenges we're facing.
Like climate change.
Exactly. These fires are just one example,
Yeah, of how climate change is already having a real impact.
and they show us that we need to start making changes.
Changes in our own lives?
Yeah, and in the way we live as a society.
So what can people do?
Well, that's something you can think about and research on your own.
Right.
There are lots of resources out there.
There are websites, organizations, people working on solutions.
Find something you're passionate about and get involved.
That's great advice.
Thanks for joining us on this deep dive, everyone.
It's been a pleasure.
We'll catch you next time.